Can y'all hear me in the back?
Not really. Yeah, can you speak up, please? Air conditioners are on. Thankful.
Okay, so call order. I think we usually start out with public comments. And so if anybody has any comments they'd like to start the meeting with, Sonny? That can be a discussion. Somebody suggested we take the Pledge of Allegiance at the meetings. I think they're appropriate for the supervisor meetings, but for the planning commission work meeting, I don't believe that that's necessary. If anybody feels strongly that we should do that, certainly want to consider it, but that may be an executive decision. I'm going to do it unless we have a forum that says we should. So, all in favor?
I would not be against it.
I would not be against.
So I'd be perfectly fine doing it, but I'm not stipulated around.
Maybe do it at a normal meetings, like a official.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
Maybe so you,
Okay, so I'm hearing a proposal that we say Pledge of Allegiance at our normal monthly meeting, not our working meeting.
But we will go in that next meeting.
How can we go?
This is a work session. So next time we'll actually bring up.
We can't vote on it in a work
Right.
session. Okay. So once again, public comments.
Is there any chance we could have public comments after we talk about something that we can comment on?
So usually, what the way I'm setting this up is I'm going to allow public comments at the beginning of the meeting. If you guys have any suggestions for last meeting, anything you thought about, something you want us to know about, that maybe not on our agenda, we haven't considered, that's your opportunity to do that. And at the end, we have more public comments in closing, and that's when anything we've talked about during the meeting, you guys can,
So as you discuss each item, the public cannot comment on it?
I'm trying to avoid that because it just bogs us down and it takes a long time. So I'll say ad hoc on that. If you have a suggestion, you have something you'd like to add, that's fine. But what I don't want to get into is a back and forth, or debate, or anything like that. So
No, I understand that. I'm just saying, I thought the purpose of the workshops was to work with the community, the residents, to come up with these ordinances. And if we can't they're asking us to comment, but we don't even know what we're going to talk about tonight. And, it would be nice, at least at every topic you guys discuss, ask for comment, limit it to whatever you want, if possible. But yeah, I think the bantering, you'll never get anything done. But it would be nice to have some input without having to interrupt.
okay,
So, is that something we can do?
it's possible.
Okay,
Take
thank
that
you.
under advisement.
Thank you.
Well, I think that's the idea behind the second public comment period.
Yeah.
Period being that.
That doesn't give us any input.
Item
That doesn't
comes up
give,
during the meeting, you can comment.
Okay, so communication and input from the public is helpful.
okay.
In real time, when we're talking about something, it's helpful. So, yes, as long as it doesn't get out of hand, as long as
Understood, yes.
we have 20 people here, like the meeting last night, we're talking to
Yeah, it's different, absolutely.
a few folks that want to provide some input. We'll allow that.
Okay, thanks.
But our formal agenda is public comments at the beginning, public comments at the end. I'll allow a little bit of variation. Okay?
Thank you.
Good with that? Sure. Old business, review subdivision and zoning ordinances and possible recommendations for the township supervisors. That's what's officially on the agenda. We can do that. There's a couple other things I just want to bring up and talk about. If anybody around the table besides me and Bob, there's really a lot of people here, so come up to the deputy study, come up and talk, of course. But the other guys didn't get a chance to come up and listen to the township's proposal on the property that's carry out. You know about that. So, township's looking at possibly buying a piece of property right up the road here, converting it into the township facility, and selling this property off or using it for other purposes. And it was a pretty good meeting last night. Had a lot of good visuals, a lot of good discussion. Of course, there's a lot of people that aren't really thrilled about the idea. There's others that are. So it was a good meeting. I brought a copy of the handout, and pass that around, you guys just look at that while we're talking, just get an idea what they're covering, just for your awareness. And then the supervisors meeting, they may vote on it next Monday, you may want to come to that just to get some more input and see how things go with the township.
So one developed piece of land.
It's a developed piece of land. There's a home, there's a second home, there's a huge maintenance building over there. There's two septic fields, each building. There's some renderings of this, where it's at. It actually kind of fits together. There's a huge cost savings compared to the other plan, building and building.
How far up the road?
You know where Twisted Ink is?
Yeah.
It's right there.
Do you have any copies of that, Bernadette?
I have copies in the office for those again.
Okay.
So now, I think we should all be aware of that because we're going to eventually be involved in something, I'm sure. But it's an interesting concept. I think, again, the cost savings is huge. But there's a lot of details that have to be worked out. They're not there yet. It's the concept. They've got to start somewhere. And trying to be, transparent with the community. They're showing what they have and the community wants more information. We don't have that, so we'll do this.
Little white fence.
So that was an interesting meeting last night, and we encourage you all to go to the supervisor meetings. Google Groups, I'd say it's still in testing. I think everybody has accepted, and I think everybody has that now. I don't know what you guys can see versus what I can see as an administrator. Start putting our files up there, and copy them. And somehow we're going to tie in our group email, that Google Groups email address, so everything starts going into. I guess that goes to Gmail. So there's all the different apps that all tie in the group. So we can get Drive for our files, Gmail for our emails. There's a couple other ones that we have for the calendar. So
And that is still a private group?
it's for
To the civic.
So the first order of business was review of the saldo. So Tom apparently, has tried to capture all of our comments through the past several months. And did you have a chance to get that all updated?
It is mostly updated. What we found is by adding certain things, definitions in, we need to then modify the ordinances for those comments, even though there may not have been comments about that while we were going through it. So making changes to the ordinance, we're going back now and just adding those things in so we're consistent with the definitions being the sections for details, and making sure that it's all covering everything that was the intent of that discussion. So it snowballed a little bit on us, but I was expecting to make changes. We say, here it is, but realizing that then if I do that, we fix the sections, and we have holes in the ordinance. So,
The only thing I really wanted to do with that tonight was get a copy to everybody and ask everyone to go on and look at their own notes and compare them to what changed. It's not going to be productive to try and do that as a group. So tonight I really wanted to move on, or at least start on the PO.
Well, before we get to there, it's gonna be a Word document soon.
it'll be a Word document. The version that you get will not have any, you won't see what change, we have a version that will show you all the changes made. The working document that you have will accept
Be a
all the
clean Word.
changes
Okay.
to be the starting point that you can.
Okay, okay, good. What I would love to do with it then is I volunteer you to take a first crack at the Word doc and redline what I see in it. And then we can pass it, but we don't want to all redline at the same time. I've had that blow our heart miserably with other projects.
Yeah, it'll be set up for review comments to see, and again, most people can go in there, your initials read by the comments, but you're right.
It's always better one at a time. One person does it, then you hand it to someone. Because if multiple people do it, it just gets to be ugly another time.
So that's it, you email it to everybody, and then you take the first crack at it, and then send it on to somebody else. and just-
Yeah, we can do something like that, yeah. I'm fine with doing something like that.
Because then
And then we
anybody
can
next
use
meeting, everybody can run through it.
So I'll recommend that we all go through it, but don't really mark it up, but just keep changing.
Unless you mark pencil paper kind of markings,
So
nobody knows.
I'll go first with this red line.
anybody wants paper, we can certainly provide paper copies as well, so you can, or whatever format works, we can certainly do that as we used to do.
Okay. Clear on that? All right.
So, just a question, Word documents, you know, keeps history of tracking, so, like, if you send it to everybody, and Bob makes changes, this will be notated with, it can be notated with his initials. And everybody can notate it, and you'll have everybody's separate, expedite.
Yeah,
Word is very convenient.
that's what I originally had.
Okay, I didn't know if you were aware of that, so we're
I
gonna
had
have
to do that one at a time, rather than have 20 different comments on the same thing.
Remember, we tried that on the conference and plan, and it did not work.
Okay.
It just became such a jumble between.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mary, for giving us copies. Sure. All right, so, we've got a plan for this out. Tom, you have kind of a estimate that maybe finally developed?
Next couple of days, probably by Thursday, expect it. We can run it in the camera, we've got to see.
So, why don't we try it for Monday? Okay, next Monday. You know that.
All right.
Okay. So that leaves us with the PRD. And that's a new area for us to look at tonight. We haven't really done much with it. Past meeting, we got several examples from a lot of different townships. Somewhat overwhelmed when I started looking through them all.
Yeah, I did send you all the previous financial township here, that might be a good start, that's up to you all, but,
I'm a little biased, obviously.
I know.
I like center townships.
I would like to hear why.
Yeah.
This is,
Well,
to me,
So,
I think we all need to be kind of oriented and get a general broad view of everything before we start diving in.
yeah,
And I know you've got a lot of insight and knowledge on centers, and probably work with Lancasters in more detail than I have. So could you
actually, I
compare,
have looked at Lancaster recently.
could you compare and contrast, or at least give us some input on?
What I can basically say is, when I was crafting centers ordinance, and I did it as a result of a center didn't have a PRD ordinance in place at the time. I was doing a development which fit a PRD model in center to the T. Kind of felt like I wanted to do it. And I proposed to them adding an ordinance. They agreed. They allowed me to draft it. Obviously, I had to go through all the standard steps to get it adopted. I started from Adams Township ordinance, PRD ordinance. Adams Township is a bit unique because they're actually pretty convoluted in terms of ordinance mechanisms. They've got PRD ordinance and they have development model in their ordinance. Both things exist. So you have a PRD, which is your standard traditional PRD, kind of build so much of the property, keep so much green. It's not based on so many. It's not based on widths of lots and all. It's based on area, density kind of calculations. This much density in this kind of zone. Just standard PRD buildings. Adams also has what they call development model. Development models they'll allow you to do sort of PRD-like things in them. You have to have your trade-off of green space and product, but they want a mix of product in the development. So what they do is there's different development models. There's a large suburban model, a small suburban model, this model, that one. So like 4 or 5 different models. Each one is a different mix of products. So what that means is a mix of product in their sense is, like in the small development model, you would have to have 3 product types. And product types would be like a traditional home, neighborhood home, and suburban home. And each of those homes has definitions mainly what the sideline setback is. One's 10 foot, one's 12 and a half, one's 15 foot, and then some minimum acreage to go along So, for example, you might say something like 40, you can have no more than 40% of your development as traditional homes. You can have then no more than 40% neighborhood homes, but you can have any number of suburban homes, not suburban or bigger ones. So they want to max, they want to limit you to not putting all the highest density in, but they want to mix of product types. I opted not to use any development model language in killing Center Township's PRD. And the reason is there's some serious flaws or loopholes, as I suggest, in the development model mindset. The development model mindset is built around these product types, and the product types don't specify single family, duplex, and anything. It really talks about sideline setbacks in the area of lot. So the way I like uniform developments, so I built a duplex development under the development model in Adams Township. Every product's the same. What we did, and it's a standard loophole. You take this lot, is this one, that's going to have a traditional duplex on it. Same building, but it's a traditional lot, so it's a 10-foot sidelines. Next to it, I put a neighborhood. It's a 12.5-foot sideline. So the lot's just a little bit wider with the exact same product on it. So I have the same product on the whole thing. And I had to take one lot and make it a little bit bigger. So it's a suburban house, which is another duplex at the same time, a little bit wider. That's it. So when I did the development, when we laid back, is we drew all the lines in such that when it's all said and done, you basically have 22.5 feet between every building. Now the property line is a little bit skewed, but one's 10 foot, one's 12.5 foot. No one cares about the difference. It looks like it's all one nice homogeneous community, meeting the letter of the ordinance, but not really the intent of the ordinance. The intent of the ordinance was you mix product types, which I didn't want to do, but I met the letter of the law of the ordinance. I'm not a fan of development models for that reason. There's these loopholes that you can just do. And I also don't think it's a good idea, or I don't think it's necessary to have development models and PRDs, because you can do everything you want to do with a PRD, and why do it with a development model? So I started with Adams PRD generated Center's PRD. Obviously, it was very self-serving because I needed to fit what I was doing in my development. If anything, I think it's a good bare bones starting point to be augmented by additional restrictions, conditions, etc., that we as a group deem necessary. They were very generous with me. They trusted what I was going to do, so they allowed me to do much whatever I wanted. And that worked, and we go to the very next development. But maybe the next guy won't. So I think it's important to keeping it simple is good, but making sure we've got enough controls and restrictions is good too. So I like this simple starting point of like a Center Township thing. It's very straightforward, really straightforward. It doesn't have some of the complexities of the old Lancaster stuff. But I think folding some of the additional restrictions, clamps, things like that back into it could be beneficial. Because not every developer is just going to have the goodness of the sort of do the right thing. So that's sort of my intro to the whole thing. That's the one I'm most familiar with, obviously. Butler Township, they had a PRD ordinance. We went and worked with Butler Township to develop a called their cluster development ordinance in addition to their PRD ordinance, because they didn't have cluster laws. So we built under what they call the cluster development model. Again, similar to a development model, similar to a PRD. They did not want to be like, they wanted the independence of writing it themselves, but they were nice enough to go and before it went anywhere, I got to review and comment on it. We developed their cluster development model in Butler Township in a similar way.
It's a cluster.
It's the same thing. It's another way of saying PRD. All of these boil down, the essence of a boils down to density-based development, not area-based development. So how you want to slice the pie, how you want to actually limit the development. Say for example, in R1, we say we want, let's just say, for example, 2 homes per acre maximum. So that would be half acre. Maybe you only want 1 acre, or one home per acre, so it's essentially 1 acre lots. What a PRD does for you is it says, instead of saying every lot has to be 1 acre, say if you have 100 acres you develop, you can't put more than 100 homes on it. Here, 100 homes. How those fit, you as a developer need to choose that. You can take half the ground and put 100 homes on 50 acres or keep 50 acres green space, but you can't put more than 100 homes on 100 acres if you're 1 home per acre density. In R2, you typically double the number. So R2, in our case, it might be 2. You might start with 2 in R1, 4 in R2, whatever. We can come up with the numbers of what the densities are. But that's really what it comes down to. And in addition, they typically have a little bit more in terms of they don't demand that you have 150-foot lot, for example, frontage on a lot, or 2 acre minimum lot size. You can have a 1/4 acre lot, but most of the ordinances either require setbacks, distance between buildings. Center Township, we did distance between buildings. So no building can be closer to side distance is limited to 20 feet, say. In proper, we push that to, actually it's less than proper, 15 feet, I think, side to side, in proper, in their cluster development. But there's in the Center Township model, there'll be a side to side, known to be closer to 20 feet to each other. If it's back to side, there's another number, back to back, it's another number. So you can have restrictions on how close buildings can be to each other and to other types of buildings. So for example, if it's to a clubhouse, it could be different than if it's to another house in the development. And you limit it by overall density in the development and setbacks, either sideline setbacks, distance between buildings. There's pros and cons of both ways. Distance between buildings is what we did in Center Township. And it actually can work well, but the disadvantage of that, it's the same problem we had in Venango when we were doing Venango Trails. They had a distance between buildings. In the Venango Trails project, the distance between buildings is very small. We're talking less than 15 feet, 10 feet, I think. Oh, it's extremely dense. No, we did not do the development, we were builders. But the problem with that is if you do a distance between buildings, if you're one in building and I build first, and I decide I'm going to build 3 feet off the property line, that means the next guy over who has a build, he's got to be 7 feet off the property to give it 10 feet between buildings. That becomes a little unfair if there's multiple builders in the development, if it's not just one cohesive entity doing all the work. So it becomes problematic. Although I wrote distance between buildings in the center, I would have no objection to turning that into a sideline setback so that we can remove that problem, because that problem is real. We had that problem in Venango where another builder built next to us and he was less than his 5 feet from the line. I mean, we had to be more than 5 feet from the line, which made the building difficult because then I had all on the other side of me. So it becomes problematic and the lots are then interdependent of each other more so than you do an actual sideline setback. So I would have no objection to taking it what's in here instead of distance between buildings, turning these sidelines as well. But that's sort of my spiel on the whole thing. I think center is just a good bare bones starting point unless someone thinks differently.
How do you address the green space?
Green space, that's basically ordinance driven. That I don't know if it's probably included in there. That there's a level of green spaces. I can't remember if it was in there or if it was in the ordinance that referenced this based on each, whether it was R1 or R2. I can't remember which way it was. But yes, you definitely, whether it's 30%, 40%, whatever, it's got to be written either in there or if this applies to multiple zones, each zone could have different requirements, just like they have different densities.
Maybe, looking at the center township, I think it would be good to include something about, like, streets, Jackson Township, having it in there, very,
To do what?
like a setback from the curb to where the house is.
Oh, yes, well, there is.
Restricted.
There's definitely I'm sure there's a front setback as well.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, that's standard, you have to.
So like the street trees, they included in there, the treescape, and then the streetscape around it.
Yeah,
I think that is.
I wouldn't disagree with that at all. One of the disadvantages of being a developer is that you can't always do what you want, but, I actually designed a project in the center where we had a front setback that was, I don't know, it was 30 feet, whatever it was. But we intentionally took certain lots. I love a meandering streetscape where you can go in and it's not all straight lines, not all block oriented, but nice curves and just good look to it. Every time you turn a corner, you see something new. I also like non-orthogonal lots. I know you guys hate them, where you have a lot line that comes off of the road non-perpendicular. I love it. And I intentionally took the development and I decided I wanted non-orthogonal lots on purpose so that I could kick back some of the houses further back from the street so that it makes a more interesting flow. So here was the road widening, the road comes like this. This house, I wanted to set back, say, 40, 60 feet, something like that. Next house 35, next house 30. So that the houses are more lined up, but the street sort of wraps into it. It's a good look. It appears in, a lot of Florida communities and everything else. The reality was it didn't work in practice. Because what happened is buyers come and they say, you know what, I want the backyard, I want my house set forward. So even though I had this great mindset, in practice, it just didn't play out. So a front setback is good in keeping, we definitely want a front setback, it's good enough to park 2 cars in front kind of thing. I don't think we want an angled trails where you've got, 15% driveways that can park half of the car. It's difficult.
Yeah, but tall houses, because they're.
Oh, yeah.
Narrow.
Very narrow, I get it, they were building a traditional neighborhood community. They were trying to shoot forward. They originally didn't want any front load garages, and they found out that they can't do that because you can't have an alley behind us if you don't design an alley in. You don't design alleys for towns, they didn't design alleys for single family. As soon as you do front load, half of your house is a garage. It is what it is, and you've got a steep driveway, and you've got a 15-foot front setback, which is just ridiculously short.
How does this plug into the zoning ordinances? Does it go along into it?
The way it
Or is this lived on its own?
Well,
It's its own zone.
yeah, it lives on its own, and it's usually either a conditional use in the zoning district or a permitted use in the zoning district. I would argue to make it permitted uses in the zoning, not overlay. I would make it a permitted use in the zone instead of conditional use in the zone.
I believe that's what the comprehensive plan.
Correct. I recommended that. I don't
It's
mind
still goes
conditional.
through the preliminary approval.
Is this issues?
Oh, yeah, you still have to do all that. Yes, you still have to do all those things.
Get a little confused with overlay.
The old ordinance was an overlay on top of the existing zoning. They did an overlay district on top, which there's certain purposes for an overlay, but I don't see it as necessary here. I think it's a permitted use. PRD ordinance is perfectly reasonable. As long as we've got the right criteria in that ordinance.
And you still have to go through the whole process, you still have to do the
Right.
land development and then subdivision and preliminary and final approvals, so you still go through all of that, because you're the planning commission and the
And the idea is that the final approval document basically governs the zoning of that property. The developer will know exactly what they're getting.
What's that?
From the developer's view, they know what they're getting.
Yes.
like you to kind of read through them and just kind of give us a similar overview
Yeah.
of what's in the PRD and what your thoughts and comments were.
Yeah, I was mostly commenting on the that we had in the original PRD that I think was a little much. For one thing, I don't like the way you had 5 foot sidewalks, you were allowed to 10% more density. You had X amount of open space, you were allowed to have more density. I think some of those were way on, but I don't mind so much the higher density and more open space maybe. It's all my opinion though, so, yeah, 6 foot sidewalks actually, this is on the board. And I know I have 4 foot sidewalks, 6 foot, really wide. They didn't, the one thing they didn't have in there, they did have in there, I'm sorry, was enhanced structural elements feature, which I think some of our residents have, very often brought up that they would like to have like design standards so that we had higher, but we had better looking buildings. Like Bob always builds a really nice building, others don't, which is kind of nice. That again, that's all on you guys.
It could be like, require homes to have stone instead of just all vinyl,
Yeah, oftentimes it could be a percentage of stone on the front,
Yeah.
something like
Some
that.
have full front porches, just different amenities that.
But whatever you do, it's gotta be very clear with the criteria. Because the developer, not the builder, because the builder's the one who's getting that. The builder will go and do the minimum he needs to do to make that work. So unless we're very clear on what we define as these enhancements, they'll take advantage of it.
So you can define the architectural elements and the facade.
Yeah, oftentimes it'll be written in here that, 30% of the home, or 30%, typically it's 30% of the front of the home has to be brick or stone, something like that, instead of just vinyl, so you're mixing some of your
Real
elements.
stone.
No, it's all blue ones. No, it's
Yeah, you would need.
I can't remember the last job we had in Girl Scout, it's about 20 years ago.
So is everybody stone?
Well,
It looks like.
looks like it.
It really does.
Yes, you have to be specific, but then non-specific, because you're not going to get into proprietary stuff, but you have to use this sort of.
Yeah, and the problem is, and I don't mind trying to put some of that in, but I think this went too far in terms of giving, you get this if you do this, and you get this if you do this, and it goes, whoa, this is complicated.
Well, the increases would be, if you did 5 of these, you'd be able to double your density.
But some of
They're on
that,
page 5 of the like exponential one. Increase open space 45%, 55%, increase open space 55%, 10%. I'm not opposed to those, you all might be, it's up to you. Permission by applicant to use green building standards, that might not be a bad one, 10% might be a little high. Doing a central activity area facility, 5%, 50% of all garage space interior applies. Once it's 10%, then right below that, a grid street pattern, interconnectivity of streets still dead, full stacks, 20%, that's high.
it's not only that, but this is pushing people towards the traditional neighborhood development, where it's pushing people towards. People living in the suburbs actually still like cul-de-sacs. They want to live on a cul-de-sac. They don't want to live on a block in a traditional neighborhood. This is incentivizing you to build a block structure, not cul-de-sacs.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you're not gonna, you typically wouldn't have that anyway. I think in the comp plan, we actually limited length, we didn't limit length, we demanded additional turnarounds at certain distances.
Yeah.
Not, well, that's in the salary. So that's in the salary, we added so that if the cul-de-sac is really long, there's an additional turnaround somewhere in the middle.
And one was increased site perimeter planting or landscaping at 75%. We did a 5% increase. Okay, I know we did talk about increasing that anyway, but minimum 10% dwelling units are affordable housing, increased by 10%. I mean, that goes on to page 6, that's where it's started. Enhanced landscaping features it does give.
Some of
And
them
that's
are,
something that we did hear a lot, and we did talk about that, the comp plan as well, was increasing those standards, so we have nicer looking dollars in the comp plan.
but some of them, affordable housing, for example, it typically doesn't work this way. You're either gonna have development with designed as affordable housing, or you're gonna have development that's designed not as affordable housing. You would rarely mix in the development of both products. It's different people. It just doesn't.
And how do you actually define affordable housing?
You would go to,
There's a,
what is a federal standard, and federal.
My beef is it's complicated. And I like what Bob said about simplicity.
Simple and straightforward, but I don't mind making sure we plan pretty standards.
as long as we make it very clear, that we,
So do people think that, well, first of all,
I don't know if people thought this was
well, that was basically gonna be my question. Do we wanna have any kinds of density changes, incentives?
I'm not a fan of density incentive, but that's all up to you. I think we can require some of this stuff without actually getting that high density.
I tend to agree. I think we set the densities the way we want, and we don't really put a multiplier on it.
I'm with that,
And I think we just pick reasonable densities that will work for the seller and the developer. We just set those.
very creative, but I just,
yeah, just do it with density thing.
yeah,
And still not all of them. Again, 6 foot sidewalks.
maybe be a little bit more.
Well, sidewalks now have to be 5 foot. That's a given. So you need 5 foot to just meet the ADA standards. I have done, where I've actually done 6 foot sidewalks.
Really?
I have.
I think they would look nice.
I've done 6 foot sidewalks and 6 foot walking trails. And I've done those as negotiated features to essentially put a sidewalk on one side of the street instead of 2. There is some merit to that. I honestly, in most developments that are in the suburbs don't need a sidewalk on both sides. One side is more than sufficient. The Timber Ridge, for example, we don't have any sidewalks. And we don't, Timber Ridge was before, we have no sidewalks.
I'm sorry, but you're gonna have to move closer to here, because I never understand.
Okay, I don't know why you turned it off, just talk louder, that'll be fine.
Well, can we talk so loud?
So, Timber Ridge, we have no sidewalks. And the reality is, everybody walks up the street. In that development, it's a small enough, 30-some homes, it goes on. Plantations across the street, we have sidewalks on one side. Everyone walks on the street. They don't use the sidewalk.
I walk on the street.
I walk on the street.
Is that-
I walk on the street.
Yeah, people walk on the street. That's what they do. So, do you really need a sidewalk on both sides if people aren't gonna use any sidewalk anyway? No, it changes if you're gonna go into a development that's got 300-400 homes. Maybe it's different, you have more traffic. But in those
It might pick up the
developments,
noise on-
you don't have enough traffic to people staying off the street. People just go on the street. So, there might be some discussion, but I use that to negotiate, putting it on one side, by offering, I'll give you a 6-foot sidewalk, but you put it on one side instead of 2. That's been taken up several times.
How many homes are in, plantations?
We're in 36 range there, 36 range over, both lots.
Because the property owners on the side of the road that have the sidewalk, sidewalks and there's suicides.
Yeah.
I said, I agree with that. If we're gonna require sidewalks along both sides. The uniformity of it, the fairness, so to speak, just.
Well, the way the current ordinances are, it does require those things. I've always just come and negotiate. That's what's essential. It's yeah, that's for modification. And I can live with it either way. I can live with it, yes. It's got a sidewalk on both sides. The reality is, you may never get this sidewalk, or you require a sidewalk. And I'm fine with that. That's what people want to have a serious objection to it. But if we were interested in doing something, would we be interested in doing modifications of that criteria?
The only when they can't get a sidewalk in because the front yard's too steep or some barrier that doesn't work.
Well, that should never be the case. The reason it's never be the case is any of the streets, now, an existing road is one, but a new street is required to meet the entire 50-foot right of way graded to a certain standard. So that standard is going to help. A little bit of slope to the street, adequate to house a sidewalk on both sides. That's going to be the typical standard of 50-foot right of way. So you shouldn't ever have a problem. Where you will run into that problem is if you're requiring sidewalks across frontage of property with existing township roads. Like if you say you have to put plantations, you have to put the sidewalk all the way across front of plantations from Stone Church Road up to the end of the property. There, you'll often end up with properties the grade cannot be made.
That's the closest, that's back to the level.
Yeah, yeah.
That's probably about medium. How many do you know?
I'm not opposed to saying sidewalks on both sides. And,
That's, if you're saying that's basically the code, then yeah.
that's essentially what's in the code now. And anyone can do something different. I asked for a modification of the 5-foot down to 4-foot in the second half of the regulations. Because the code used to be 4-foot when we started the code. But when we came in phase 2, it was 5-foot. And the township wanted to go with 5-foot. So we got to move the section and we got to go with 5-foot in phase 1. Doesn't matter. It's not just right? Never pay the sidewalk, we have to pay the water.
So if the development is, you're saying like 36 unit development, they really don't need sidewalks. Is that something we'll look if it's a certain size? They have sidewalks, if it's over this, we do have sidewalks?
I'm not,
Okay.
I'm more of a fan of saying, you know what, if they really want to justify the ordinance and why they give it one side, then we can justify it. But don't just, right, I can say sidewalks on both sides, say sidewalks on both sides. If you have a reason you want to justify something else, come with it. Now, obviously, the smaller the development, like for example, the little 5-lot subdivision on White's Town Road. That they run on sidewalks. I was surprised that she never sidewalks. Wow. I would think if the ordinance requires sidewalks, they have to submit the sidewalks or request a modification to remove or do one side of the sidewalks. This is smaller development, less than this.
You think if it was 6-foot sidewalks, people would want to see it.
They still do it. Yeah.
That doesn't matter. Yeah, I was walking the street.
Here's why 6 foot. You can walk down the sidewalk 6 foot to a place very comfortably, very unconscious. You can't do the same, you can't do it with 4 foot at all. You can barely do it with 5 foot. That's why 6 foot. You can walk side by side, or What's that? But that's the rationale. 5 foot's necessary for wheelchair pass is difficult. The driveways pass as meeting code for the passing lane of a wheelchair.
See if you, depending on density, you know, lot, you have to accept.
Certainly depends on use. I don't know whether it should go to 5 or not.
Do any of the surrounding townships have any, is that they know that they have 6 feet?
I don't know of anything that's everyone is specifically ADA 5 realistic. But it's useful to go wider, and I often go to 6 foot on walking trails. The rationale behind that is now you can drive down that walking trail with a pickup truck and snow plow on that walking trail.
Or any of them?
River has 4 foot.
We can't imagine. Yeah, I know, that doesn't even mean ADA code. I can't imagine it's this current.
So,
But anyway, 6 foot, you can pop 6 foot.
another question. Is this something around? Could we offer where if you're gonna have on both sides, it's 5 foot, or if you want 6 foot, it's still on this side? It's kind of even.
It would be easier to have a standard to say 5 foot on each side, and then if they have a hardship, they would come to you and say, we're in the planning process, say, we really want to do this, and you offer them a modification. That would be the better approach.
I agree.
I agree with that. Well, I'm assuming all the boat developers are aware of all this stuff. You gotta do this, whenever you develop property, you know that you require to have on both sides, you can go, if you need to switch it. That-
A developer, yes, but the way a developer works, the developer will factor into their original planning budget, providing sidewalks everywhere, the budget for project, the feasibility study, and all of that. Then, when they actually get down to the engineering plans and submit, they'll ask for every modification under the sun and say, because that's when they want to go and say, okay, I know my project works not in that, but I can say a little here and there. I think we want to, I don't think modification is bad, I don't think request for modification is bad, I think having a unified standard for a starting point.
I don't even see anything in several of these purity examples that have sidewalks.
We got off on that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm not sure we're talking about the purity.
We are. We are.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll try.
Yeah, that's not in the ordinance. But I do think some of your comments, your front setback comments, whether they are in here or they reference your standard references back in the PRB instance, in the UX instance, tree
It's not, okay. Oh, this is 509, is that all right?
Yes.
509, oh, see? We have a complicated process.
Yeah, the center. Do you have a copy of the center? The first, Center Townships, we've essentially got the first couple of pages, first 1, 2, 3 pages, 4 pages. They're all just the standard requirements of the ordinance, saying it's how you eliminate those needs at the final order, which is sort of the administrative order of practice. And the whole essence,
I have it. Sorry.
the whole essence of the plan is when you get to, the 6th page, where it's 20-2606. There. Those next 2 pages, that defines the entire ordinance, the rest is administrative. The essence of the ordinance is right here. So, I think if I were doing anything different, administrative stuff is the administrative stuff. Tom will comment on it if he wants anything different, or when he's involved in things and all that. I think this is pretty standard kind of stuff. Or if we want to change anything in the process. The first 3-4 pages of this are just your standard introductory administrative practical words. Okay. The key to start talking about is 20-2606. What you can do in the ordinance, and what you can build there, what the density is, what the setbacks are, building heights, things like that. Those 3 pages are the whole essence of the ordinance. And I think that I would prefer to start with something like this and add in the additional detail and restrictions we want from that, from our current, and from other ordinances, from other places that we would say, hey, that's a good idea. And we shove that kind of stuff in there and merge that. But I think if we make it simple, it's a good way to go.
Well, starting out with the draft of the Lancaster, there's so many things in there that we don't know. So,
Yeah.
that we'll spend a lot of time. This is pretty much a stripped down, very
Now,
basic guide that we can add to.
what I don't have with me is, I had my engineer submit this to the township 3 years ago.
I wasn't there that long.
Something like that, maybe 4 years ago, I had Chef Road take Center Township's ordinance, I rewrote it. One, got to me, gave it to my engineers. My engineers sent it to the township for I'm trying to get the townhouses, the businesses below, so you've got a good mixed use PRD going on.
There's a health club in the back.
Yeah, they don't come back, but the, obviously the commercial shopping is one area. And as soon as you go across the street behind that, you get a mixed use PRD situation. I actually like models like that. I don't know that we need to go there that.
Trying to keep with the comprehensive plan and the rural character of the township. I don't know personally.
I like that. I like the design and everything, but when I'm there, when I'm driving, I get out of that commercial, I'm on a residential street, it seems really weird.
Residential street,
But it's hard to like, but it just feels so
I
weird.
know.
It's like, when I go to my house, I'm sorry.
With parallel parking on that street, which is,
Yeah, both sides.
Both sides.
I know. Scripted, like, you know, I think it's, doesn't really fit, so.
Where are we zoned to have mixed use?
what's that?
Where would we be zoned right now to have mixed use like that? Is it just along the 19 corridor or?
Yes, basically, in the current use zone, that theoretically. My preference would be, we write a PRD ordinance designed to be R1, R2, mixed use, it's a residential ordinance. If we want to go back and add mixed use PRD, mixed use 219 corridor, in an R3 district, or some other much higher density kind of thing, we address that as a secondary thing later. We don't know we need to go down.
We did have a plan at one time that was proposed and it was withdrawn years ago. Actually, we're pretty good then. It was going to be commercial in the front. So we had little strip on the front and little in the back. I don't agree or disagree, I'm just looking at that now.
So there is an interest, or some level of something that can do that.
So they're legitimate interests, they're definitely legitimate interests, and what they want, we can totally restrict them by limiting it to residential only. If they want to come in with another request for modification, next year, we can address it at that time. I'm not a real fan of opening up that can of worms now. Keep it where we're at, but I do see a day coming where mixed use, PRDs, something we will have to address.
I was gonna say, in the interest of time and beating the developers to our township, we should try to get this getting down first, and then if we want to add something later in the future, we can do that. Everybody agree?
So the standard in 6A, permitted residential uses.
Are we missing anything there?
What's that?
Are we missing anything?
Well, the only thing I think we're missing there, and I don't know if we can find it somewhere, is how wide the townhouse is. Because 4-foot townhouse is different than 6-foot, 40-unit townhouse is different than 6-foot townhouse. And do we limit townhouse rates center current? No.
We have 6 units.
Would it be 6-unit townhouses? Is it? Oh, that's right, because that's the regular.
Yeah, that's the max is 6.
Okay. So, are we good leaving it at 6, or do we want to change it? In here. That's the only thing I'm seeing here is that we don't define, obviously, quads are 4, tries are 3, towns are, that's it. So it's a definition of and it's right where we want to end.
You normally don't see anything larger than 6.
Correct.
I'll say,
And 6 just increases your density.
What's that?
6 essentially increases the density.
No, your density is still going to be limited by whatever your zone is.
single family dwellings, whatever, that is attached to the house.
Is it mobile trailer, attached? Does it allow us? Is it mobile, like a trailer home? Is that considered a single family home attached?
See, now, I've seen those that do that.
I guess
Do you agree with that?
that's a really good question, because I never even considered it. Because when you build a development like this, and your cost per foot road, your cost per foot road is $1,500 a foot. It's really tough to justify putting a trail on a piece of property in a development. That makes sense.
Modular homes, to me, modular homes are much different than a,
Trailer park.
yes. There's lots of really nice modular homes. In fact, my house is a modular.
There's nice trailers.
Oh, yeah, but,
So your definition in your solid defines it to include mobile homes. Significantly, it could be a mobile home.
Okay, so what are the pros and cons? Cons?
You know, that's a mobile home.
Okay. Is it a legitimate concern, is the question? The reason is, if you use a commercial developer for $1,500 per foot road, you're really gonna end up with a little home park. I doubt it.
There we have regulations on the
We
mobile
do
homes.
have that regulation on mobile homes. It's different. And mobile home has to be like under the foundation. So it's going to be caveat. Technically, it's the same thing.
But in practice, do we want to, or do we need to restrict it, or if someone wanted to do a PRD development that included modular or mobile homes, would we care, or would we object? Do we not want it?
I mean, ultimately, it's, you're gonna have the size of a lot, whether that building on that size of a lot is a big building, small building, it's still one building on that lot, so I don't know that it's a factor. If you're really limiting the number of homes,
And that would be the developer's decision, right? He thinks mathematically this project can fly. Should we be stopping them? I don't think so.
I don't know that matter.
I mean,
We're expecting that much on development costs, okay? You know, things like anything some for maybe 200,000, some of them are 200, 300,000. I've seen them, mostly.
so coming back to this, do we need to change any definition of what we're going to permit? I think we decided townhouses are already good at 6. And that even a single family, including single family detached, including modular and or trailers, so be it. Developer can make the road fine if he can't, which is more than likely, so be it.
Don't forget if you design standards and with the design standards in. So if you put in some of the
the
design
modular
standards.
homes, I'm not sure about
Yeah.
the trailer. I don't want to include, apartment buildings, condo buildings or something like that,
Correct, that's not it.
but,
That's why I was going with townhouses, so we're limiting to the 6 unit townhouses and actually we would be okay.
we would have to exclude.
No, we that most single-family developments are owned by fee simple. You own to arbitrary points on a piece of real estate, you own a piece of ground. However, development like Scenic Ridge is comparable, as not owned the same way. You as an owner own drywall in on the house. The ground outside of you is owned in common amongst all the residents of the community. So it comes into play, you need to articulate that somewhere, because if you But was that by ordinance or was that by HOA?
No, it's ordinance.
Ordinance, okay.
Yeah, you couldn't have shit. So what people did was they put like playhouses out there. And then they kind of put plywood around them, like, that was the shit. So, you know, there's ways to get around it that look very
We wall those up.
ugly.
Permanent.
So, yeah.
So, we limited, I mean, we're still gonna try to get it somewhere.
No question.
So these, again, these are individual lots.
These, what we call accessory uses, would be on individual lots. The auxiliary structures would be in the common areas.
Is your base control where those accessory structures are in the lot or anything like that? Then you can't have it.
Yes,
It
we
is.
do that in places like plantations and timber ridge. We do that per declaration. It's written in the declaration, yes, you can have a shed. It has to be minimum this size and it's architecturally matched the house, which is always another question, is how architecturally matched it is. And it has to be no closer than the rear of the house, no closer than the front of the house, whatever. And we ensure fences the same way, but it's all done per declaration.
So that's not clear.
It's up to the developer. We're giving the developer control of that, and maybe not the developers care. So,
But
I
I've
don't know
seen
if
that
we,
declaration to be part of the final.
It's always the issue with that.
Yeah, I mean, part of the final approval.
oh, it is. The declaration is definitely
Yeah.
part of the package that the township reviews.
So.
But if the township
that's-
doesn't have a requirement of it, we can. That's the question.
Yeah, I mean, the real question is, do you want to have a restriction or allow them, the developer, in other words, change it? But if it's there, then he can say, okay, I don't want it, or if it's not there, they can use it or not. So the question is, do you want to further restrict it?
So, I've got a question here, and I'm jumping ahead with density. The comprehensive plan, we're not talking about 8 units per acre, what are we, 2 or 4 or something?
Okay, so we're doing that.
Density, I'm not on the same thing. Yeah.
Well,
It says
no, not quite. This is Center Township.
Okay.
This is what we propose for Lancaster. Lancaster's, our density, we propose lower density
Okay.
in Lancaster.
Okay.
And I think what's proposed here is very reasonable.
2,
2 in R1, 4
okay.
in R2. I think
Okay.
those are very reasonable numbers that we presented here. Obviously, up to discussion, but I think the numbers are also consistent with what we did in the company. If I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah,
So,
so I thought we wanted to.
remember, this was written long ago.
Yeah.
I thought we said the comp plan, the R2 was going to be 2 per acre, I don't know.
No, they are two right now.
The R2 right now is, if you
Or
are
2 right now is what?
1 per acre, 2 per acre if you have.
What was it?
That's what it is right now.
Right now.
Okay.
That's pretty low.
It is very.
So, I know you guys are strong, can I go back to something else,
Yeah.
single family homes? Does that include tiny homes?
Tiny homes are another interesting question. Because normally
Some of the people there are from bigger cities, clearly. But they said a lot of the tiny homes are finding they're requiring a yearly inspection now because some of them are being used for pet labs.
Wait,
Pet labs. Yeah. So I don't believe the zoning will come up with that, but I was just wondering here, are tiny homes?
I would say it was normal,
So that would think,
but I don't know if that's a restriction, because again, you're gonna have lots.
right,
Whether it's a
yeah.
big lot, you're still gonna have one tiny home on that lot.
It would be cost effective, unless you're gonna do a whole development.
that sounds a great, that.
Yeah, but, yeah, yeah, that's true, it would not really be, cost effective for the developer.
Yeah, I don't know, I don't know that we, as a township, want to take the business of saying, home size must be a minimum of X on a lot.
Like,
I don't think we want to.
You know, the lot size of the,
Yeah,
you know,
I know that what they put on it,
right, and I think that would be a bad move in many ways, because that would really restrict a lot of people on their homes.
now if the developer wants to come in and say, every home in this development is going to be a minimum of 2,000 square foot footprint. So if he can build a development that he believes mathematically works, and there's reasons to do that, because he wants to make sure that the buyers of a larger house know that the house next to him will also be larger. So he may put that restriction on it, but if he chooses not to, it's fine anywhere, it's just next to him.
But sometimes they do it. See, developers come in, they have 200 homes, and they only develop 40 homes, and they leave this star, and then, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I didn't notice that.
It's like they run out of money, or they move on to the next one project.
Interest rates jacked up and nobody's
To
buying.
improve this huge, you know, is there a time to build after, you know, it's gonna be 5 years.
But is it
But they can't go in that extension as well.
from when they start building or from when
from when they get approval,
This
it's
would
5
be,
years. So if you say that it sits empty after 5 years, you change your ordinance, it doesn't comply with the ordinance. So
Unless they would come in and
Unless-
ask for an extension.
right, unless an extension is granted, the governor issues a declaration, extends it, which is what happened in 2008. So generally speaking, is 5 years, and then say you had something come in, you hated it, change the ordinance, they waited 5.5 years, then you do an extension, they went for a year.
Now, is it the 5 years from they started, or you got 5 years?
5 years after approval is granted to start.
To start, okay. But there is no time, you asking that, is there a time frame you gotta have it done?
you need to bring it for each lot, for each building.
I know most developers do phases.
They all need to.
Someone's gonna, they do the land, and then you develop this.
I can tell you, Arden was actually approved in 2005, with over 800 units. They ended up with 340 or something like that. And but they didn't start building until 2020.
developer working towards his goal, coming in, asking for reasonable extension, almost always going to be granted the right. As a developer walking away does happen too, and that's usually economic reasons that the developer is no longer solving, finished.
This may be a stupid question, I've talked about it before, but a farm is not a resident. So, but in a resident, have a cow, talk about it. Someone brought that up in the public comment about having farm animals on their property.
That's in the ordinance.
It's if you were to get that a certain size, like 10-acre, minimum lot to have a cow.
Is it 10 or is it 5? We expect
And it's pretty.
Because I was thinking
Sometimes
it's
it's
fine.
more of a big
I
farm.
think it's fine. We put chickens though in the backyard. There's no restriction on
I'm
that.
sure it's a public comment about farm animals. Front yard.
Well, that's why we mentioned chickens. Because that's probably the biggest, one of the biggest complaints we get. It's about chickens going on.
we control that in the HOA documents. Sure. But I'm not sure.
There, yeah, but it's part of this ordinance, you're not allowed to let any animals just run. Whether it's chickens, pigs, cows, horses, you know.
Some of your chickens, some of your opinions.
I know. Well, I think it's about taking it, they're not. Yeah, so there are restrictions on that, but it, and you have to have so much property, you have to be able, there's a lot of regulations to do, like a horse or a cow. You know, fencing, things like that, so.
So am I hearing any changes in number 6, permitted uses?
So garage would be an out parcel building, steel building, pool building, behind the lot or beside the lot for addition to the garage.
Yeah.
We want to make that something to,
The declaration is always further restrict. It can't unrestrict, it can further restrict any uses for declaration.
You're not normally going to see something like that in a PRD because the lots are smaller, you're just not moving. But we have another definition, we've had requests coming in from people with additional garages, that's a common request.
But they still have to have enough ground, like they gotta have setback.
Well, I think we all know that, I mean, on a quarter acre lot, it's not going to happen. On a bigger lot, potentially.
So if people are good with it, I'm fine with it, and let the developer further restrict it if he chooses, if he doesn't choose to. It's buyer beware of their right.
I'm guessing in some cases, instead of building a deck, they're building a structure where it comes in a garage, and it's a flat lot, still a lot. So they can get that extra garage or 2-car garage, or they normally have a deck, right?
one thing I don't like is the people that go like five big garages in the backyard, go to the sports park or something.
And what's worse than that is we built a garage with a house attachments. We could call it that. It was 4-bay front load garage, and 2 houses.
Two car big private garages, you get into these people that want to build houses.
Okay, density.
I can check the comprehensive plan on that, I don't remember.
Building.
I'm not sure it's going to find it.
Like a sort of,
People are back and forth, and it's not over yet.
I don't think we actually specify, like, you know, 2 per acre, or I think we said that we wanted to do R3 districts.
We did, but I think the R3 is going to be much higher.
It was gonna be much higher, it's gonna be in a limited area.
Very small R3 with a higher density, so we can.
Somebody came to me last night, or said last night, they commented, where's our trees? They don't have our tree. They said, we heard rumor that all the Stockbridge Road was in the R3. I said, that's not what was proposed in the comprehensive plan. That rumor is not true.
Well, we can look at the comp plan recommendation, but right now, we're looking at the way it is. Setback.
I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say the density, the existing is 3 dwelling units per unit.
And which one? Oh, the
The
existing.
existing,
Correct.
and then this one has 8.
No, no,
No,
no.
no, that's.
This one has 2 and 4 if you're looking to find out. Center is it.
We do need,
Oh, okay.
we do need to add mixed use to NR three to that.
If we add an R3, we don't permit.
Right.
Yes, we have that R3 in that.
Yeah, and mixed use.
That's true. We should actually add this now.
And do we want to add industrial, even though we don't see that happening now there, but, still district, really district.
No, I don't think we want to allow PRDs to be industrial.
No, but it's a bad area anyway. So I would say
Why
not.
would we want to incentivize how many residents
Right next to it.
complain about industry next to industry? So I think we just don't allow, it's not a permitted use in the industrial district.
I think mixed use, what about the village? I don't know, but.
No, I'm fine with that, I'm fine with adding to all of those, so.
I think we need to add all that.
So so we're gonna add R3,
Mixed use.
use, and I would, you know, as a quick numbers, I would again double R2, maybe R3. Mixed use, I would probably just keep as an R3 and number and 8, let's be one of the lots. In the village, Wrigley's density turned into be like 3.5, 3.6. You're gonna be hard pressed with 8 units a day or in PRD. You almost have to go vertical and move into apartments to get that kind of density. Unless you have a really nice piece of property, you need all.
Apartments right now are considered and townhomes, I think. Which makes sense.
Have you ever had townhomes come in that are condo and split horizontally as well? Second floor is 1 unit, first
That's typically vertical.
Because you can sell, because everyone wants to sell the thing simple, that's the reason I just know in other areas, I've seen this really nice product where you grab them split horizontally, you might have 8 units in a building, smaller than an apartment building, 8 units in a building, with town home oriented, and you go up to a second floor, so you've got 4 and 4.
You do have a lot of people who can't do steps. So it's for lower than they can't, they don't want steps on the house. They're supposed to go first floor apartment to townhouses.
And that's a product I could theoretically, that being condo, ownership, and I would imagine that if someone wants to live there, come and ask for a modification, you can make it right in.
We have density for the village.
Yeah, good question, I don't know where to go first.
I would just propose
that sidewalk should say road walls.
I agree with that.
Yeah, and very interesting things, but in practice,
Doesn't have densities, doesn't.
Okay, so,
Just
I couldn't find it either.
so,
It is not.
what do we want to do? Just scrap B, just scrap the paragraph? Any reason to rework or just scrap? I'm good with scrap.
The sidewalk would be the road right of way, potentially they could increase that road right of way. Utilities use something, we can increase that or have an additional right of way, but I would say just keep it in the road right of way.
Do we anywhere specify the distance from sidewalk to street?
We have a standard detail of the paving that then defines where that sidewalk is, so it is on our street.
But from what I see, no one ever adheres to it. Sometimes it's 3 feet, sometimes it's 5 feet, correct. It's never really precise. Should it be? I know that's not right, that's, but
We have it at 6 feet off of the edge of the road. To me,
that's so tight, that's bad. I don't like that standard. Well, the problem is you only own 12.5 feet. And if you're pushing your sidewalk, edge of sidewalk out to 11 feet off the curb, which is within a foot and a half of your edge right of way, typically a foot away from that is going to be your water meter, water valve, curb stop. And on the inside, it's going to be your gas stop. So,
you have a foot to the sidewalk.
correct.
It is very
It's very tight. Personally, I would like to see number like 4. We decide on 4 feet off the back curb. And gives you room for the gas curb stop, 2 feet off the curb. And it gives you room for water, curb stop, on your property line, basically right at that, 12 and a half, 13 foot. You typically try to put them right at that road right away for the water, curb stop there.
The only other issue I would have is if a snowshoe along the roadway, we want a snowshoe between the road and the sidewalk. We don't want to plow over the sidewalk, snow on the other side of the sidewalk, so we want it in that strip between the road and the sidewalk.
Really? All snowshoes like that are much deeper than that, they go across the sidewalk.
It's an issue.
It's not that easy.
The 6 foot's not going to give you enough snow.
No,
No chance.
it wouldn't give you much more, but I'm just saying that could be areas where you have a snowshoe, you gotta work around that.
Why not? Why not follow us? Why not require the developer to solid surface
Well, that's.
through the sidewalk? So the developer would then be required to solid surface, asphalt or concrete, from the curb to the sidewalk, and you push straight across
Sorry,
sidewalk.
that's also what we've done. In recent cases, it's all asphalt, there's no some concrete, so that you have room to.
The 6 foot's never going to be enough snow. Yeah. Typically, we see it varies, and I think we need to turn into 2.5 feet, I think is tight. 6 foot's too much. That's Southwood, isn't it? Oh, it's,
It's a subdivision requirement, so it can be modified based on.
anyway,
Not sidewalks,
is that?
not sidewalks.
Yeah.
Again,
I guess sidewalks seem to be the
but
We don't
it's
need-
maybe, change it.
That's your standard configuration right now, from side to side. You're rarely gonna run in front to front. You're rarely gonna run in front to rear. But we include front to front is very difficult, because it has to almost loop around. So front to front, and if you've got a road in between, you're already gonna make 30, 50, and 30, you already exceed the 70. Front to front is a very unlikely, just going down the street. Front to side, if you're on a curve, you can have front to side. Front of this house is more oriented, sits back a little bit. You measure it to the front of this house, to the side of this house.
You measured from
Corner,
okay, that's the question.
corner, closest corner, closest corner.
So it's not,
Closest corner to the curb, the tangent to the other house. Yes, there's a minimum.
So, again, if I have two houses, and front and side, oh, that's the side of the lot.
Side knows the house.
So if they're parallel, and the front and side's 50, isn't the front to front 50?
No, that's side to side. It's, you have to get this house rotated 45 degrees from this house to measure from the front of this house back to the side of this house. It's a tough condition.
You're almost like that street that follows.
Street really hurts.
I mean, I think you understand the nomenclature, I can't visualize.
Well, it's a good point. I think what we should
That was
probably
my
do is,
I mean, I'm not,
just like we define interior lots and other things, we should probably, if we want to define a graph, drawing of how these things are all being, so that people, I agree, know the definition. I think a graph of that would be nice.
so the one that's the most
Side to
side,
side,
yes.
side to side, 20 feet, that's the primary, side to rear, you know, that happens, actually side to rear happens a lot. But at the intersection, you face this house to this street, he's gonna come near the rear of this house, is gonna be the side of the house to that street. So side to rear is a common condition. And we can change any of these numbers you want. Personally, I found these numbers work pretty well. Butler Township, we actually had side-to-side numbers of 15 feet. 15 feet is tight. Now you have 10 feet. Well, Texas it can work though, because you don't have any buffer. But say you're on a road with 12% grade, going uphill, and you're gonna do 20 feet side to side. That's a difficult thing to do in building and managing stormwater. Because you've got this guy's stormwater is gonna start 5 feet above this guy's stormwater. And you have to get a swale between those two houses to pick up that stormwater. 20 feet is what I found a minimum to effectively make that work. 15, you struggle. To manage that stormwater on a road slope, going up side to side houses. So, I'm a fan of saying 20, I'm not a fan of tightening up anything.
Would you be a fan of 30 feet?
No, too much. Well, in the development world, there is a magic number. The magic number is 60 foot long, 40 foot long. That's the magic. If you go to a lot of the production builders, they'll have tons of homes designed for 39 feet. They want 39 plus. They want to put a 60 foot long. That's
60 wide.
60 wide, they want to put a 40 foot long. We call it 40, which is cat and nail with 40 to give a really fun time. Well, some of that, we need to educate Congress on that. The next session, we'll educate, we'll stop.
The work was done in one, procedural.
Okay. Everybody, it's a short copy letter.
Did I say this was really example? Is it some, my name is
Okay.
So we're just talking about.
Okay. I haven't got that. I just
I may have said it before you all.
It might have been.
But I'll send it to
It's in a priority.
you. Is it?
Yeah. June 11th.
Okay, I'm gonna open it up for public comment, feedback.
Am I good?
Good.
Okay. One comment, two requests. One comment, two requests. Number one, I don't think we can spend too much time on this PRD stuff. A lot of great ideas, a lot of my favorite buttons on PRDs, meandering roads, offset houses, you know, and Meredith, I think you might have touched on something. Bob didn't mention was boulevard style roads, but we really have some treescapes in there, so I encourage you to spend as much time as you can on this, that's what you are. The request, I would ask that if there's some way, whatever you're discussing, clearly looking at, is it center townships, ordinances, or
This was, what we were talking about tonight, we started with Center Townships, and I rewrote it a few years ago, 4 line and a half, with a few changes, and not much. And that's when we started.
okay, is there any chance that people, that needs to get a copy of that, so they can follow along, not necessarily interrupt, but it would be nice to just look at what you guys are looking at and discussing, so we have an idea of what you're talking about.
So I told you that I would try to get copies.
Okay.
That you guys, you know, can use while we're here and turn back in. One problem is I didn't know which one we were going to look at tonight.
Which leads to my next question, or my next comment or request. I know, I'm sure you guys are doing, but I know the comprehensive plan has a strategy. You guys are marking stuff that's high, medium, low. Is there any order to the, how you're going through this, so that you could know what you're talking about? No, I didn't mean that in a negative way, but you just said that you didn't know. And so, or we could prepare, is there any way that we could, I mean, this is a strategy, and I would think that maybe you could follow along. But I'm just asking, that would be nice, so that we,
Well, we're actually not following that directly. And part of the reason for that is our mandate from the supervisor is to work specifically on a couple ordinances.
okay?
So we're working on those couple ordinances. PRD is one of those. Now, what order we work on, there was no any particular direction. We're just doing sort of what makes sense while we're waiting on the salvage stuff to come back. We're just picking up another piece to work on a little bit. So we can do that. So we're sort of working piecemeal at the overall goal of these ordinances. Now, specifically, with respect to what document we're working on like tonight, we didn't even know until we were sitting here that we were going to hone in on that particular ordinance to start with. So it's tough to go and provide.
Well, I'm not saying make 100 copies, maybe 4 or 5.
Can you just pull up online while you're sitting here, you can pull up Center Township Store?
That's really what we're already starting tonight. We ended up with starting with a different one, which isn't published anywhere. That was purely a paper copy that was sent to the township 4 years ago.
So I did tell you we tried to do that, and I couldn't make it happen tonight for the reasons I explained. But moving forward, when we know we're going to be working on something, we will get some extra copies.
Okay.
And I appreciate it. I'll make that point. You know, once we get the PRD and Saldo where we like it, then we got to go to the zoning ordinance. There's no problem with bringing that existing ordinance, zoning ordinance.
Yeah,
Well,
I
they're
have a
online.
copy with us, so that's not an issue. I'm
Yeah.
saying stuff that we can't bring.
A word of caution in this though too is that whatever we provide for you guys to look at, remember, it's a working process. It's not something we want you to take pictures of and go out and tell the community, look at what they're doing. It's, no, this
Well,
is a
you're probably
working
not aware
process.
of the conversation thing that I had. I asked just because,
Yeah,
because you're right, because you could go south.
we have concern with people going in
No,
and spreading
understood.
misinformation about where we're going, we're not even going there. It's-
And that's why I was saying it would be turned back. Just so we can see what's going on. Thank you.
Okay, I got a couple here. One was, I know,
Bonnie,
I'm sorry,
move forward, so we can hear you.
I thought you could hear me. So, one is a copy of the old Lancaster PRV. I know I've been looking for it for years, I haven't been able to find it anywhere. Where would you find that?
I went back and searched it out in the records, I can give you, I think, no.
Yes, it does.
If you come in the office, I think we can turn it off. If we can find it.
Then the other questions were, just to, as a refresher, is, it was discussed on the comp plan that the PRB would have at least 40% minimum raise rates as well.
We just have to go after that, that was.
I know, but I was just reminding you, that's all I was on, because you were talking about that at one point. And
That
then,
was the next paragraph.
Yeah, we have you right.
and then, third was, you had talked about the sidewalks being ADA, you know, going 5 or 6 feet wide with the sidewalks with wheelchairs. Something to think about, most people probably never have, is making sure the driveways are wide enough. So people can get 2 full-size vehicles in, like a full-size van, or pickup truck or something, and still be able to get in and out and deal with wheelchairs. Most of these places, you can't put anything out, a 24 by 24 garage, you can't do it.
I understand, but that's honestly not our purview.
I understand, but it's just something to think about.
Because a single family home does not have to be compliant.
I understand that, but you don't know you have visitors. Something could happen to somebody, and then you've got all this problems. It's just something,
I totally understand, but it's something we as a body can't regulate.
I understand, it's just, you know, I know before we were talking about making sure the driveways were wide enough, that will install it. So maybe that might be something to think about, just say minimum 20,
It's something we shouldn't even regulate. We can regulate the width of the length of the driveway, so that the bumpers aren't into the road right away. That's something we can do in setback. But we have no right to tell them their driveway needs to be 10 foot, 20 foot, 30 foot wide. That's not something that we as a body have the right to do.
Especially on single family.
Right.
But
We have the right to do
I
that.
would think in development, you should be able to do that. Now, if it was like an individual property or something, but if it's within like a development like Orange Woods or Scenic Ridge, I would think you'd be able to, but that's just my
Is there anything
opinion.
that prevents people from doing that? I have a builder come, I'm gonna have a custom home built in one of these areas. I can have him give me an
Absolutely.
extra width of driveway.
Absolutely. You can
Because
just
it's accommodate my wheelchair, I can have to build that.
Well, yeah, I think that was what I'm just saying, across the board,
As long as we're not restricted, we can't.
yeah.
And that gives them the option to custom it to what they need.
Because we don't even have the right to tell them it has to be concrete or asphalt driveway. They can do gravel. They can do these plastic things in the ground with grass vegetating through it. So that's all their right to do what they want with their
I
driveway.
get that.
And
I
we
just-
can't control that.
Just the setbacks on the side of the road.
Right, they have to be so far from the neighboring property. Yeah, we already have that.
And we
The
can control
declaration.
the declaration, we don't do declaration.
township proposal for the new property. But you know a lot of people that were here, and you probably heard a lot of feedback on it. Could you share with us, for this road conversation, what maybe the foremost things that people are opposing? I heard a lot of opposition to that plan. Could you summarize what would you consider the highest or the most hot things that were really upsetting folks about?
Feasibility study, like the, like transparency, feasibility study, everybody's worried about how taxes are gonna increase if it goes through. I'm worried about taxes increasing, spending the money everywhere, when there's other priorities that need to be done too. You know, a lot of things in the township, like roads and stuff like that. And everybody, nobody believes there should be any grants coming through, when they do come through, they're gonna be utilized.
Okay, thank you. Just appreciate the feedback.
Could I add just a couple of things, some notes here?
Sure, Mary.
So, we talked about the sidewalk, setback of snowshoes in the area between the sidewalks. One of the things we have to consider is our public works is really not set up for PRDs. So, you know, we're more of a big, wide road situation. We have to eventually get to that place where we can handle development. So, we like the idea of the wider snowshoes with the sidewalks. A couple of problems that we have right now is with the utility easements in Arden, for example. I don't know if it's within the PRD's purview or if it's outside of it and that becomes part of the developer's agreement, but we really need to restrict these utility easements being within the lots of the fee simple homes. You know, make sure, because we're having problems with decks, et cetera, and people are buying properties and then have a giant utility easement through their property, and they can't build a deck on top of their house.
Then, I can comment on that.
Yeah.
Couple things. Number one, it would be a good idea if we could recommend it, but I don't know if we would require it. But what I do know my province is I put an additional 10 to 15 foot utility easement parallel to the road right away. So in essence, you get 80 foot area for utilities. The whole road, 50 foot plus 15 and 15. That's always in the front setback of the house. So that when those issues are never an issue with respect to someone going back.
Appreciate
Where
it.
you end up with deck issues, two areas. Storm sewer easements, private storm sewer easements, and sanitary easements. Those are the two that are going to drive things. And unfortunately, those are the two that have the least control in terms of they go where nature tells you they go. So we can encourage something, but we can't really restrict it.
The issue you have is you grade off the lot so big, you have a down slope, you have the sanitary there, and we have 5 feet for that.
I know.
That's,
Yeah, we
just
actually have
people
that.
know,
It's buyer beware, buyers aren't educated enough to beware. There's a problem.
And they put in a nice big, door for them, and,
having the opportunity, that space between units, to have the rear driveways and to allow that, that variation, a couple in front, a couple in the rear, so that we, especially in the townhome developments, we create a more unique setting and also varying roof lines. And I don't know how much you guys want to get into that, but I like that idea. The other thing is, the entrance to these developments, you're considering a 25-acre development, we really want to make sure that we extend the length of that entrance into the development, so the development sets back if, as we continue to grow, we know it's going to happen. We really need to protect the rural character. That's what our whole comprehensive plan is about. Make sure that entrance is as wooded as we can make it, and as much barrier as we can make it. The leveling of the land and in my opinion, decimation and wiping out everything, it kind of leaves us with this frustrated view of the residents now, with what they see maybe in the garden, and we don't want that to continue. And I realize, you're going back to level land and between roads and these other things, but we really have to create that barrier between these developments and the private residents, so it doesn't impact. If I have a beautiful home that sits on 10 acres and there's land that's going to be developed, I want to look at it. I want to create that barrier between me. They might be there, and they might be all centrally located in the middle of this lot with walking trails around their trees, but it shouldn't be something that I have to look at because it's there. And I think that as you progress through the PRD, it's an essential part of your saldo. You really need to focus on those things and make sure that the public understands that you are really working toward the comprehensive plan so we should set the stage for it. And that's all I'm saying. Sorry.
I think thank you. It's very, I think 50 foot round it up.
54 around developments may know, but I think we also may want to continue discussion on should that 50-foot be changed along the existing township roads. Because the existing township roads, that's a lot of shielding. So maybe we should rediscuss that and rediscuss that in a continuation of upper yard discussions, especially in relation to areas.
Thank you.
Two more things now. One, there was one people saying that we already have, this part, we should not do anything with it. They're very concerned about what's going to happen with this. Extremely concerned. And two, a 50-foot buffer to the private property from a development is not enough. I can guarantee that. It's no different than going from my house from here to my house. It's not, it's ridiculous. You go from having, nothing but acres of trees, and now you see it's a 45-foot high retention pond, 25 foot from your house. The carries a half million gallons of oil and ridiculous.
Well, you wouldn't see the retention pond, you would see the trees. That would be
The retention pond should not be within 300 yards of existing property, especially residential homes.